Good news is you can buy the Volvo XC40 in Ireland for just over €40,000, and that's a nice badge to have for 40 grand. But this is the PHEV version, and it's not 40 grand. You see, this is the Recharge Inscription Pro XC40, which means it's got an electric battery which will do 40 kilometers on a single charge. If you want to do some charging and you're a bit for the planet, it will cost you just over €9,000 extra to get into a PHEV version of the car. And that's quite a lot of money. And that brings me on to this version, which is an Inscription model, which is €55,000, but comes with absolutely everything. Like the bigger alloy wheels, the roof rails, the glass sunroof, blind spot in your mirrors. These cover the inside of the door so you don't get mucky legs, even though you're driving around in muck. And a guy has actually just walked up to me while I'm filming this saying he's looking at one of these, and he was like, is that the XC60 or 40? And I was like, no, it's the 40. And that's the thing. This version is a little bit taller, a little bit wider, kind of sits higher. And I just don't know if you need to go to the XC60 when you have this version. The back has little chrome trim for the exhaust, but they're not fake. There's actually two exhausts in there, even though it's a plug-in hybrid, I know. These washers, they're heated if you get this version, and you can see the steam actually coming off them as you clean the windscreen on these cold winter days. There's an electric boot release. Again, these are all optional depending on what spec you go for, but in this version, it's all there. Even the PHEV version has the same size boot as the standard petrol. You can keep your cables under here, and there is an actual space saver wheel, which is nice to see in 2021. The Type 2 cable isn't in the car, it's at home. Thanks to Darken EV, I've been charging it because they gave me a charger, and you should check them out if you need one. But I have to commend Volvo for the length of their cables, particularly the Type 2, because you can park the car any which way in the driveway and you'll still be able to reach the charger, and that rarely happens. Volvos are safe, so we have first aid kit just to remind you of that. This parcel shelf actually fits in the boot, and that doesn't always happen in cars. You'd be surprised. There's elasticated things to hold things into place, a 12 volt. The seats easily go down, giving you a massive, massive boot, and even the headrests have little electric releases on them, which, I don't know, gimmicky, but just feels good. So that's the back of the XC40, but for your rear passengers and legroom, what's it like in there? Well, first impressions when you climb in is it's quite roomy. Glass roof does not impede at all on your headspace. In fact, there's just so much of it. It's very, very well designed. I'm about 5'11", that's my seating position, and there's still loads and loads of leg room. And the armrests are at the right height. The windows for kids come down almost all the way, not quite all the way, but better than most. Little hook hangers. Now, they look a little bit cheap compared to maybe something like an Audi. And there's little bits of black plastic here. But then you see airbags and stuff here to keep you extra safe. Again, because you're in a Volvo. 2 rear vents for passengers. It's not climate controlled, so you'll have to put up with whatever the driver and passenger are doing. The seated seats, buttons for both down here. Again, depending on what model you're going to get. You're not going to get that in the base model. And there's a USB-C port in the back. You get an armrest which has got room for 2 drinks. You can access the boot that way as well. Something I'm not sure on is, and it's quite prominent throughout the car, the door cards are all lined with it, and the carpet is, it's not wiry, but it's like black and grey and like a kind of, I don't know, some weird carpet that you used to have in school, and I think that kind of lets down the interior a little bit. I'd like fluffier carpets, please, if that's okay. For 2 passengers, it's going to be fine, even if you've got teenage or older kids. Big hump in the middle of the floor, so that's going to make sitting in the middle a little bit more difficult. And you'll fit 2 child seats back here. You might even manage to fit yourself in the middle between them, maybe. If you don't want rascals in the back letting themselves out at 70 miles an hour, there's a button in the driver's display there on the right of the door, and you press that, and they can't open the windows and they can't open the child locks. They're electronically done. You can manually operate them as well, but it's just handy for when you're on the move. One of them's acting the absolute you know what. Now there's loads of safety features going on up here and tech and gadgets, so let's check out the front. By the way, if you'd like to support the channel, Nobby on Cars, chili bottles, loads of other bits, you'll get the link to the merch store in the description of the video. Cost you nothing, and well, not quite nothing, but you'll help support this fully independent channel, and I really do appreciate it. So thanks if you've bought one already. Inside the XC40, you could take this out of the XC90, the S60, and this central display, the buttons, the lovely heated steering wheel. It's so nice on a day like today because it's freezing out. All these bits and layout and displays are all right across the Volvo range, so you're not going to feel shortchanged by getting one of the baby models. This version, because it's the Inscription, as I mentioned, has everything. Wireless charging, the Aura 4s, I think that's how you're pronouncing it, Sweden, crystal gear shifter, which lights up at night time. It's kind of blingy, but I kind of like it. Armrest, decent storage space. You can't fully, from what I can see anyway, you can't slide it, and you can't cover up that little bit there, so technically stuff even under there could be viewed from the outside. The Volvo clip is still there for your car park tickets. There's an on-call button. I'm always, what's that for? Is that like, can you park anywhere you like, pretend you're a doctor? I don't know. There's an actual knob for the volume. Yay. There isn't one for the climate, but it is always down the bottom of the screen, so you just touch it and on it comes. There's no major inconvenience. You're not actually going through menus to do it. It's a button, but it's always there. So the interior feels really classy. There's a Harman Kardon sound system in this one. The Volvo seats are always just very, very comfortable. They are electrically adjustable. The brake pedal is kind of at a weird angle. I'm used to it now because I've been driving the car for a couple of weeks, but at first drive it was kind of just tilted towards the ground in an odd way. I don't know, a bit strange. But look, the front feels Volvo, classy. Vents are nice and different, and these interiors, they're seriously underrated. The battery charge that you've put into the car can be locked in to be used at a later point in a journey, let's say when you're not driving on the motorway. You can get adaptive headlights, or as Volvo like to call them, bendy headlights. Because you can plug in the XC40, you can time it so that in the morning it's already pre-warmed up for you, no more de-icing windscreens, and the heated seats are ready to go. The main difference between this engine and the normal petrol engine in the XC40 is this is actually a 3-cylinder 1.5 engine as opposed to a 4-cylinder. 180 brake horsepower, just over it for the petrol engine, and then when you have your battery fully charged, that bumps it up to almost 260 brake horsepower, which means there's quite a bit of power. When it's a bit cold, you'll hear that 3-cylinder engine, which maybe at this kind of money you don't really want to be hearing. But the thing is, if you keep this car topped up with charge, unless you're doing sustained motorway driving, you will really hardly ever need the petrol engine. It's incredibly useful up to even 70 miles per hour or just over 120 kilometers per hour. You'll still be able to use battery, and that's the interesting thing about it, because it's actually quite a usable power band range. And a lot of hybrids, as soon as you floor it, the petrol kicks into life and it's like, oh, I need power. It doesn't need to do it in this car. They're the pros of it. The cons are, fully charged, it will do 40 kilometers. Now, I've driven about 2 kilometers since I've started filming, and we've gone from 40 kilometers in range to 31. It is 2 degrees outside, but you'd still kind of expect it to last a bit longer than that. So it says 40 kilometers fully charged. I don't think you'll ever truly get that. I'd be confident you'd get 30, and maybe a bit more if you really are very, very careful and methodical in how you accelerate, and it's all very smooth, and how you pull away from traffic lights and stuff like that. If you do those things, you'll probably get over 30 kilometers. In tests against the normal petrol model of the car, in-gear acceleration in this model is also noticeably quicker. That instant torque that you get because you have that electric power there too, it just kicks into life straight away. There's a bit more lag in the petrol model. This is about 200 kilograms heavier because of the batteries. So I've been very good in terms of charging this car every night without fail, and I'm getting 7 litres per 100 kilometers all day long. Also, in the interest of fairness, I should point out that that range is with heated seats on, heated steering wheel on, and it has kind of calmed down now the engine's warmed up a bit. So I last told you we were at 31 kilometers, now we're at 28. So I've probably traveled twice the distance and only use now 3 kilometers of range. So I think just when it's cold as well, it doesn't help. So as a PHEV, it kind of does what it says on the tin. It'll give you electric range driving that is usable. Of course we'd love it to be bigger. If you want it to be bigger, you're going to have to go for a BEV. Almost 2 weeks now into driving, and I've used exactly half a tank of petrol. So that means you could be topping this up, obviously depending on your mileage, once a month, maybe. Then you're obviously going to be charging the car in between that. That can be anything from up to €1.70 for a charge, but possibly half that depending on who your service provider is. Just in terms of general driving though, sitting position is nice and high up, typical kind of crossover SUV. Ride height, visibility is very good, lots of glass around you, tons of safety features. You have the pilot assist that Volvo call it. Your cruise is adaptive. You've got blind spot, you've got collision avoidance in the front, cross traffic monitoring in the back. It senses everything. And then it feels nicely planted. The wheels are a decent size in this car, but it never feels particularly harsh. So as just a general car to drive, forgetting for a moment that it's also PHEV, I've no complaints. The petrol one's going to feel a little bit better handling because it's 200-ish kilos lighter. My other question, I suppose, is there's no doubt the XC90 is a phenomenal bus, and if you want to check out that review, I'll leave a link at the end of this one. But do you need to get the XC60 when this does the job so well? So there you go, my review of the Volvo XC40 PHEV. It's a jump in price compared to the standard car to get into something that you can charge all the time. If you're not going to do that kind of mileage, just get the normal XC40. It is a great car. From 40 grand, it's a little bit dearer than some of the cheaper models, obviously, but you're getting that Volvo badge on the front and a lot of safety and comfort and style thrown in for a good measure. If you want to go up the range a little bit in terms of trim and spec, you'll still get a very nice car, just not that really cheap version to run. Thanks for watching as always. There are ways to support the channel in the links below if you want to help out, and subscribe if nothing else. Thank you very much for watching.